Excellent. So before we kick off, if you wouldn't mind, Kim and David, we'll start with Kim, as I'd love to just get you to do a little introduction to the group, just who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank
my
you.
my name is Kim Albee. I am from normally Minneapolis, Minnesota. I spend the winters in San Diego, California, which I'm super happy about. And what I do is I have a software company in the marketing software space, marketing automation, email marketing, and all that. And my current project, about a year and a half ago, I started to wonder if AI could help solve the two biggest friction points that I saw the businesses that I work with struggle with in terms of how they grow. And those two friction points are not having deep insights into their ideal customers
Mm,
and not being able to create content consistently that resonates with those ideal customers.
mm,
So we set out to see could AI help us solve it? And we came up with, and what the result of that is our campaign coach .ai software with a whole system and process to dial it in. And it got down to three questions. What do you sell? Who do you sell it to? And what's the biggest benefit they get? We run
mm,
that through a bunch of curated prompts. We generate had over 150 plus insights. And then we have a whole process about how you use that to activate your own expertise and intelligence so that
mm,
then it makes it easy to generate the kind of content that you need, as well as what we call momentum content. So that's what
mm,
I am working on. That's become my life's purpose at the moment in terms of that. And I have just finished one accelerator with people going through to learn it, and I have a
mm,
new accelerator starting a week from tomorrow to do the same, except for on the shoulders of the first one. So yeah, it's
mm. Yeah, I love that, Kim. There's so much crossover what with the system that you've built there, and what a couple of us have built in the group as well. So we've got to exchange ideas at some point too there, because I think that'd
absolutely.
be very valuable.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I
the other
think.
thing, I'll just offer one other thing is, and then I'll shut up. But as far as LinkedIn goes and comments on LinkedIn and using AI generating tools to do that sucks. They suck. They all suck.
Yeah.
And so, but comments as a strategy on LinkedIn can't be ignored. It is huge, and people don't think of it as their content strategy. So I came up with this really cool idea last over the weekend, and I implemented a Pinecone database with all the courses and everything that I've ever come up with and led and blog posts, the whole nine yards. And then I built a little tool on top of it that actually I can put the LinkedIn post in, and it'll reference all of my experience base and come up with what a good, really good comment would be. And it can
Nice.
give me like a couple variations, and then I can look at it, make a couple edits, but it is the best commenting tool I've ever seen. Just
Oh,
saying.
that's
So if
wonderful.
anyone wants to know how I created it, I'm
Well,
happy to
that
share
could be
how that got done.
that could be part of your presentation, I think, Kim. That
I
sounds.
don't know that there's time for both, but if you want to, anyone wants that, I would be happy to get on a one-on-one, whatever, and show you exactly what I did because you guys could easily do it.
Okay,
If you have
I might take
content.
you up on that.
Yeah,
All right,
if you have content. That's it.
we better keep on moving
Yeah.
though. But David, brief introduction, please, buddy.
Hello, everybody. While Tim is in the southern part of the state, I'm up here in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area near famed Silicon Valley. And as far as what I do, I've been in the market research business for a long time. I'm a behavioral scientist. I specialize in qualitative face-to-face research, but I'm also a highly trained nonverbal intelligence expert. And so, with my qualitative research, I marry nonverbal intelligence. And then 3 years ago, we started to add artificial intelligence on top of that. I just wrote my first book called Backbone, which describes my almost 4 decade qualitative research career. And looking forward to hearing a lot about this group. John has talked you guys up pretty good. Uh, so
That's right.
my
Oh,
expectations are super high.
thank you, thank you. I've talked you up too, mate, even higher. Very good. All right, let's kick off. So, welcome everyone to Connect AI. So, today we have joining us for the first time Kalen Huntress. So, he's going to be demonstrating for us how to transform your book content into powerful marketing materials using AI. But not only that, he's going to be sharing practical strategies for integrating AI into your existing content processes, how to streamline your information management tasks with AI assistance, and a whole lot more, I'm sure. So about Kalen. Kalen is an expert in the art of attention, bringing his unique perspective from his journey, originally as a circus acrobat, which I'm hoping he's going to enlighten us about during his presentation, to becoming a digital marketing strategist. He's the behind-the-scenes mastermind behind multiple six-figure product launches, and today he helps entrepreneurs work smarter using intelligent system implementation. So with that, over to you, Kalen.
Thanks, John, and thanks everybody for spending this time with me today. And so I want to acknowledge all of you for coming together from across the ditch, across the globe. As John said, I'm a digital marketing strategist, and I'm an American immigrant to New Zealand. I'm actually the newest Zealander. I got my citizenship last week. So this means I'm descended from generations of immigrants who've left their homelands to seek better fortune across the sea. And I'm broadcasting to you today from Christchurch on the South Island, and I'd like to acknowledge the hereditary keepers of this land, Otautahi and Aotearoa, and also to acknowledge our digital ancestors who built this virtual landscape, this metaverse that allows us to congregate across time and space. So thank you to those who came before us, and may we do good works together here today. Now, I'd like to know how everybody's doing. Just get a sense check of the room on the scale of cat. Which one of these cats most accurately matches how you feel? Type a number in the chat box for me real quick, and just tell me which one of these cats most closely matches how you're feeling today. I think I'm on number 2. I'm going to pop in a 2.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, John's a 2 as well. Glad I'm not the only one. Where are you on the scale of cat? Just getting us warmed up before we start doing some stuff. This is going to be an interactive workshop. You're not going to be sitting and watching. We're going to be participating. We're going to be doing stuff. But I know some people are cat people and some people are dog people. So if it's easier, go ahead and rate yourself on the scale of dog. And let me know which dog matches how you feel. I'm a number 6. So I'm going to pop a 6 in there. Great. Anybody else feeling on the scale of dog? Great, got some 1s. Awesome. Excellent. Okay, so let me get a sense check of the room. This is a workshop I typically teach to authors who don't know generative AI very well. And so I'm curious, because we've got a lot of AI experts in here, like how many people here use more than one LLM on a regular basis? Show of hands. You use more than one. Great, you use a bunch of them. How many people have a custom GPT that's trained on their voice? Show of hands. How many of you already have a custom GPT? Great, great. Now, how many of you have written a book? You've written your own book and you've got a book. David has, Tim has, great. A couple of us have, okay. So one of the things that we're gonna do today is we're going to upload a book to create a social media content calendar. And if you have that book, I want you to get the PDF ready. Okay, so locate it on your hard drive, find the file. And if you haven't written a book, I want you to select one. You can go onto your hard drive and find a book. Could be anybody else's book. We're just going to do this as practice to get this going. And if you need a book, I'm going to go ahead and drop one in the chat box. And this is a PDF by Wallace Wattles. It's called The Science of Getting Rich. And it's in public domain because it's old enough that it's past copyright. So if you'd like a book to create social media content out of, you can feel free to use this one. But get that book ready. Yeah, David, see your hands raised. And you're on mute. Okay, so do you have a question, David, or?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know why the hand went up. My hands were down here. But,
Zoom does this as soon as hands go up. Now it's doing this automatic thing where, yeah,
trying to make it easier and then it makes it harder. We see this with bots, right? Well, I hope you've got your PDF ready. I'm going to share some concepts with you, and then we're going to go right into using ChatGPT with this PDF to turn a book into a content calendar. Because this is the promise of AI, is that you throw your book in and then you get all these social media posts out. And I learned how to do this after writing my book, which is called Marketing Yourself: How to Elevate Your Personal Platform to the Next Level. And I wrote this in August of 2022. So I published it right before ChatGPT was released to the public. So I did this manually. And I feel like really proud of that I wrote it without AI. So I know I can do that. Sort of like, how my generation is the last generation to remember life before the internet. So that's important to me. And I wrote this book after running my digital marketing agency, which is called Stellar Platforms, where for 15 years, I've helped experts and entrepreneurs set up smart marketing systems. I focused on authors, coaches, and speakers. That was my niche, is experts who had something to say and something to sell. People like Mike Rayburn, who's a Hall of Fame public speaker, like Lisa Garr, who's the internationally syndicated host of The Aware Show, like James Twyman, who's a New York Times bestselling author. I was their back-end marketing guy. And my work was focused on creating content in my client's authentic voice. And so I did a lot of email automation and website design, lots of newsletters, so that I could take an author's book, pull out the stories and articles for a newsletter series, and pre-plan a year's worth of content. And I started using ChatGPT to expedite this process. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today, is how we can use ChatGPT to create more content. But there's a problem with doing this, and I'm sure you've seen it, is that it's a lot of fast bullshit, right? It's sometimes what you get is not really usable. I like what copywriter Brooklyn Nash says. He says, AI gets the job done like instant coffee gets the job done. And if you're waking up in a motel room at 5:30 a.m. in Wichita, instant coffee is what it's going to do the job fine. But when you're out there promoting your brand and promoting your voice, it's not enough. You need something a little better. And so what I try and do is help people reframe their perspective of using AI. Instead of thinking about it as one smart assistant, think of your GPT as infinite dumb assistants. It's like you have a million monkeys on a million typewriters. Eventually they will hammer out Shakespeare, but there's a lot of garbage you have to sift through. What Dr. Jason Fox says is that AI mirrors our collective mediocrity, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to overcome that. Instead, we're going to use ChatGPT in a different way. And I'm going to give you two tools. And the first one is a Google Doc workbook. All right. Now, I am not a co-host, so I can't spotlight myself. John, could you spotlight me, please? Make me big. We're going to come out of gallery view so that you see me big, so that I can show you something here in the screen. All right, great. Oops, sorry for the infinity mode, folks. There we go. All right, so what we're going to be using today is a Google Doc workbook. And you don't have to have a Google account, but it's easier if you do, because you can save it to your drive. And what this is going to do is it's going to help us use ChatGPT to create and collect a lot of content. There's some instructions here at the top if you get lost with it later, but there's three basic sections. There's research and brainstorm, feed AI your book, and the content calendar. And the first bullet right here is keepers. So when we get things that work well, we're going to paste it right here in the keepers so that you know what you're going to keep for later. And this first section is just to get you warmed up. I don't think we need to do this with this group because you're already adept at using ChatGPT. What this does with authors is it gets their hands into it so they're used to prompting. They talk about a topic, they generate a list of keywords, they talk about the demographic. But what we're going to do is we're going to skip right to this second section. to feed AI your book. And we're going to use this first prompt. You're going to upload the PDF of your book. And if you don't have an account that does allow uploads of PDFs, there's a free tool you can use called pdf.ai. So if you get into like, oh, my Claude account won't let me upload because I don't have a paid account or whatever, you can go to pdf.ai, and this is a free tool that you can use. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this prompt. You are an award-winning book reviewer, known for crafting concise yet poetic analyses that resonate emotionally with readers. Your task is to read the following content and provide a synopsis that captures its main topics with both depth and clarity. First, summarize the key themes in a well-structured paragraph that flows naturally and engages the reader. Then distill the core ideas into 5 impactful bullet points for quick reference. Ensure your language is both insightful and evocative, maintaining a balance between brevity and richness. So I'm going to come over here to ChatGPT. I'm going to upload my file. And for my book, it's called the Marketing Yourself Manuscript. And I just type in manuscript. If I spell it correctly, it shows right up. And then I'm going to paste this prompt that I copied from my workbook. And now, depending on your reasoning model, it might take longer, it might take less time. I'm going to give you this workbook, and I'm going to paste the prompts in chat, and then set a timer. And you are going to do this yourself. And then we're going to come back and talk about what we find. Okay? Now, what I find is it gives me a synopsis, and then it's going to give me 5 bullet points of the key takeaways. I might find something in here like this sentence: marketing yourself is more than a book. It's a step-by-step playbook for elevating one's platform and turning expertise into a thriving business. I can copy that and come right back over into my workbook and scroll up to the keepers and paste it in this bullet and add bullets here. And so this is really what you want to do as we're doing this work, is you want to find keepers, okay? And now if you finish this before the timer's up, you can feel free to continue with these here, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you some links here in the chat box, okay? And this first link is for the Google Doc. All right, so go ahead and click on that, open it up. And then when you have your own copy of it, give me a thumbs up in the chat.
Yes, that's all good.
Excellent. Okay, so now I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. And we're going to do this together. So go ahead and upload the PDF of your book and start having a conversation and start doing these prompts, okay?
And just to confirm, Caitlin, we're starting at the Feed AI Your Book section.
That's right. Yeah, go ahead and scroll down to Feed AI Your Book. And we'll do this together for 3 minutes.
Find where I left my book. There's a demo model in chat if you need that too, Tim.
If you're having problems getting the Google Doc, I'm just going to paste the prompt here in chat. One more minute. Okay, let's all come back to Zoom. So this is the first part, to train our GPT on the content we're going to be using. The second part that we're about to do is going to be creating the content calendar. But what did you find in this part?
I found it worked very well. So I used the sample, Wallace Science of Getting Rich, and it did a good job. And I found myself, when I went through the initial synopsis at the start, I grabbed a couple of lines there that I thought captured the essence of it. But then when I got down to the core 5 impactful bullets, I found that most of them were spot on. So I brought all of those across.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it was not too different from John's analysis. I did the same book, but I went down and did some of the other prompts as well. And the voice, the voice and the style of the author description's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really like that.
I got evangelical.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got, so I used one of our training programs. I don't have a book, but we have training. So I picked that I have in a PDF, all the transcripts that I just put together. And so when I ran it, I wasn't quite sure if I got the instructions all correct, but I went through the feed AI your book, and I went through all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prompts, right? So I love the part about the voice and style, and then I changed that voice and style, and I have yet to read it because the time ran out. And I did the press release. I got to go read that, and then so I haven't read anything yet. I've just ran through the prompts, and now I got to go back.
Great. Great. Yeah. Well, reading all of this isn't necessarily what we need to do. It's important that your bot does it. Because by creating the press release, Kim, it made your bot think about, how do I express this to others? And so next, when we ask it to do a content calendar, it's going to use all of this as context, because it's in the context window. And so this is really just to warm up the AI, so it really thinks about the content before we start having it make any content for us. Does that make sense?
Right.
Great. Okay. All right. So now the reason why this first prompt was long was because I used a framework called the Pillars framework. I use these 7 pillars, well, not all 7. Sometimes I only use 3, but I use up to these 7 pillars when I'm creating a prompt. It's like with a stool, if you have 3 legs under it, it's going to be stable, but if you have more, it'll be more stable. The first one is the persona. Who is this bot that's responding to me? Oh, sorry about that. What's the intent? What's the layout that I want it to give me? What are the limits on its prompt? Who's the audience? What are the requirements? And what's the style? And so this frames it for the AI, so they know what they're going to be creating. And I find this is important because, you know, when you're doing something with automation, it's really easy to overlook authenticity. And if we're creating posts for social media, we need to keep authenticity front of mind, because the bots won't think about it. They're just going to automate as fast as we can. As humans, it's our responsibility to rein it in and to avoid slop. Like when you're doing this, please avoid slop. All right. So now we're going to figure out, what do we write? What are we going to create that we post? I find it's helpful when you're taking a book length piece of material to look at it through 5 different levels of content. And the first level is the thesis. You know, this is the title of the book. And the second is the themes, and these are the categories that this book would be in. And there's one title for every book, but there's 4 categories you could put it in. And then we go through some theories, 20 article length pieces of content. And then we go through thoughts. You can make a weekly newsletter from 52 thoughts. And then you can make threads, a daily small piece of content. Threads are fragile. They're not meant to hold a whole lot of weight. And so as we go further down the levels of content, keep in mind that your threads are going to be smaller and lighter weight. They're not load bearing like your themes. Your themes are really load bearing. You know, if I was going to say I'm doing something on content production, my 4 themes would be writing, publishing, planning, and delegating. One of my theories would be plan 12 months of content in 3 hours. One of my thoughts would be use the 7-step newsletter formula. And one of my threads is don't do all the writing yourself, get robots to help. Do you see how there's different thicknesses here? Okay, so I'm going to come back over to the workbook. And we're going to look at the content section. And I think, oh, great, John, you made me a co-host. Thank you. So I'm going to add a spotlight in and come back over into my fancy mode. I'm using Ecamm Live to do these fancy tricks, which I like. So these are the 5 levels of content that we just talked about. And so we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to take one of these prompts, come over into our GPT, and we're going to start asking these one at a time. What's the overall thesis of this book? I don't even have to wait. I don't have to read it. I don't have to check it. The whole point is we're just going to go through all of these. And I'm just going to prefer this one just because I'm doing demonstration. What are the 4 main themes? And while it's thinking, I'm going to come back over here and copy the next one so that I'm ready to paste it as soon as it's done. And so you don't have to read everything. You know, I don't have to check it right now because I'm trying to get to those threads at the end. That's the purpose of this, is that the GPT is doing the thinking and I'm giving it the prompts to move into more granular levels of content. Now, when you have a prompt that has all caps in it, when you see something with all caps, that means you're going to replace it with a variable. Because I don't know what topic your book is about. And so I just have write 52 catchy subject lines for emails about this topic. And when I paste it in here, I'm going to double click on that word in caps and replace it with the word. Like for me, it's going to be about, I could do marketing. I'll do personal branding. Boom. And that's going to cook for a little while. But the one that's really going to cook is this 365 tweets. Okay. And so as this cooks, I'm going to let it go. And then I'm going to find a whole lot of things that I can go and put in my keepers. Okay. And so now I'm going to turn you loose. Infinity mode. Sorry about that. Here we go. I'm going to set another timer for 3 minutes and you're going to work through the next section of the workbook. Okay. Any questions before we get started? Yeah, Kim.
Let's see. Yeah. So topics. When we're going and getting the thesis and the themes and the whatever, any clues in there for what we can just easily pull as a topic without having to rack my brain and being behind?
Yeah,
in the...
one of the themes would be really good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Good question.
Okay.
this is fucking wicked. This is,
Language, Tim.
this is awesome. Oh, sorry.
1 minute left. All right, let's all come back to Zoom. How did that go? What did you find?
I don't want to come back to Zoom. I want to stay here.
Yeah, back at Zoom.
I would say that this is pretty amazing in terms of it taking like, I'm not using a book, I'm using training that we came up with.
Yeah.
And then I thought, we do twice a year, we do a summit for continuing ed in the US and Canada, right? Colleges and universities that do non-credit courses. And I'm thinking we could take all the transcripts from our summit, put them in here
Yeah.
like a book,
Yeah.
and run the same stuff, and then
Exactly.
start posting out about that upcoming summit
Yeah.
to register people into it.
Yeah,
Um,
it
but
doesn't
there's
have to be
also
a book you're using. Any long form content will do.
Exactly. That's what I'm learning. But here's the other thing. And, it would be fun. I would love to have a follow-up call with you, because I have some ideas for collaboration between what I'm up to and what it looks like you're up to. So just if you're
Cool.
interested.
Let's connect
Awesome.
AI at work.
It's the connection part of it, right?
Wow.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, I mean, I just chucked an ebook that I'd written in. I think it's about sort of 40, 50 page of ebook. And ironically, this is perfect timing, because I've been actually thinking about, well, how do we kind of schedule and create content far more effectively, but sort of written in our voice. And the stuff I've seen to date hasn't really done it. I like this framework. My question is really, how many input sources could you put into this? If you had sort of 4 or 5 books, or
You
3
want to
or
load
4
it up,
books,
Tim?
and one of your podcasts, content transcripts, and maybe this one that you've shared with us as well, Science of Getting Rich, and add in not only your own references but other people's references as well.
Yeah, you can use a lot, but I want to caution you about using them all at once. Because if
Okay.
you give a whole big volume of material, it's going to use the amount of reasoning capacity it decides it needs, or the amount that you set it to, depending on your plan, for each piece of content. If you do it sequentially, if you have like these opening questions in the research and brainstorm section, this is to get the GPT thinking about each piece of content. And so if you run through those questions with one piece and then upload another piece and say, now let's talk about this, it's going to interpret each piece of content individually instead of just look at it as a broad general average. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just wondering about that, because I've written a book, but whenever I go back to edit it, I read it, again, pre-GPT. But I get to chapter 10 when I'm editing it, and I get bored, and I don't know if it's just my ADHD, or it's just get to that point and it's really shit. And I was actually looking at whether you kind of do this to go, well, now how do I finish this thing to create it, and then sort of feed it back in to create the content as well. As an idea. But I was very curious to know about whether, how it would deal with multiple sources of content. Just go, here's my body of work to create content, as opposed to one piece of my work.
You might just have to do it one bit at a time, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'll just jump in quickly. We've got 10 minutes on the clock, Kaylin. So if you've got another teaching component, you probably want to launch into that now, and then that'll give us 10 minutes for questions and biggest takeaways at the end there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, what we're doing here is we're really getting the bot trained on the voice, but now, and we're creating a bunch of content. But how do you use that content? What do you do with it? Well, that was something that I focused on a lot in my book, Marketing Yourself. And my book, which I'll go ahead and I'll drop a link to the manuscript here in the chat box. So if anybody wants to read my book, Marketing Yourself, you're welcome to. And every chapter has a companion workbook. And these workbooks are focused on the 4 cornerstones of the book. There's your positioning, there's your profit, how you make money from your brand, there's your strategy, and then there's your systems. And the system that I want to focus on right now is your content calendar. In this page, every one of these workbooks has an instructional video, which is 5 to 10 minutes, and it walks you through how to use the workbook. And then each one of these is another Google Doc. And so I'm going to give you the Content Calendar Workbook today. But first, I want to show you how to use it. What I recommend you do is you keep your GPT Workbook open in one window. And then in another window, you use your Content Calendar Workbook. So that big list of keepers, what you're going to do with it, and where you're going to put it, that's now the human component that we need to do. Because there's things that the bots are really good at. And if you say, schedule all this out for me, it'll just make a schedule for you, but it's going to take your oversight to decide what to do. Now, this is a pretty comprehensive workbook. I made this before GPT, so it's got some copywriting warm-ups in it. It's got the thesis and the themes and the theories and the thoughts and the threads. So you can just post these right in the top if you want to, or you can keep them in your GPT workbook if you want. I've got a lot of fill-in-the-blank formulas, because, you know, I'm a marketing copywriter. I find these useful. You can double click on anything in caps and use this formula for your own topics. But I want to scroll down to the publishing section, because this is where you're going to decide, how often do I want to publish a newsletter? Is it once a week? Is it 3 times a week? Is it once a month? How often do I want to publish a blog post? How often do I want to publish LinkedIn? You get this strategy right, okay? And then you go through your editing process. You just add in everything. Like, first I write in ChatGPT, I copy to Google Doc, I schedule, and then I hand over to assistant. And if your assistant needs access to your accounts, you can just list what account, what your username is, what your password is. You can hand this Google Doc to somebody. You decide when things go up and hand it over to somebody else for the mechanics, okay? This repurpose matrix gives you the option to say, when something goes out on my blog, I want it to go to all these other places too. So I'm giving you a lot of rabbit holes here. There's a lot of places you could go, but really the focus for today's workshop is your schedule. When do these go out? Do they go out weekly? Do they go out monthly? Do they go out yearly? And then you can just start filling in this annual schedule. What goes out on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of every week, and plan out your upcoming months. And so I'm going to give you a link to the Content Calendar Workbook. We're not going to use the Content Calendar Workbook today because we're running short on time. I want to have plenty of time for questions, and there's just a couple more concepts I want to go over with you. So let me switch over to the slides here. All right, so everybody should have a copy of the Content Calendar Workbook, and this is really just a series of template formulas, which we use as marketers. We figure out a template, we copy the template, and we go through a copy-paste formula. We find the formula, we fill in the blanks, we fix the flow and repeat. And this is something that ChatGPT now does for us. We used to manually say, okay, I've got this formula. I'm going to double click on the things in caps. I'm going to replace it with the things that I want to talk about. And then I'm going to fix the flow, make it sound good. And then I'm going to repeat. This used to take a lot of effort. But now, ChatGPT does it all for us. And it does it fast. And so it's really helpful just to cut down on the grunt work to get this taken care of. Now, I'm happy to give you the slides from today's presentation. The only thing I ask is for some feedback on how I did. So I'm going to pop 2 links into the chat box. And the first one is a survey asking for feedback on how today's presentation went. You can fill this out anonymously if you like, or if you'd like to subscribe to my email newsletter, this is a great way to do it. There's also a second link for a webinar that I'm teaching next week. It's next Friday at 11 a.m. Sydney time, and it's called Be More Human. Do the work that matters most with generative AI. I've been doing a lot of thinking about how to do the work that only humans can do. Because in an AI world, if we try to do things that the bots can do, we're going to be obsolete. But if we can find that work that's uniquely human, then we're going to thrive. And so I'm happy to have a bigger conversation with you about that next week if you'd like to come to my webinar. But if you have any questions about what we've talked about today, then I'm happy to talk with you about content calendars, social media, or anything with AI.
Perfect. Thank you, Kaylin. Well, what we might do is we'll reverse the order today and do questions last. We'll go around the room first and get biggest takeaways, and that's going to give you a little bit of feedback there as well. But I'll just, from my own point of view, that was a master for those of us doing keynotes and workshops in the AI space. That was a masterclass in presentation. So thank you very much for that. That was terrific. I really loved the thesis, themes, theories, thoughts, threads. That's a very, very helpful framework for, I've been doing some repurposing work, and that's a very, very helpful framework that I'm going to put to use straight away. So thank you very much for that. But let's go around the room. Varant, starting with you, biggest takeaway from today, mate?
Yeah, mate, that was an amazing presentation. 2 big takeaways from me. Number one, your presentation style over a digital format is very, very well defined and refined. You certainly have mastered how to deliver this and engage the audience. And curse you, I couldn't do any of my background dumb work. I had to concentrate and do and do the workshop, which was good. And the second one was just chatting to GPT and having it create its own context before you start asking it questions. I think that was a huge takeaway for me. Normally my style is chuck it in, ask the questions directly, and then really get frustrated at the responses. But this seems to be, seems to be doing a much better job. So thank you. Nice work.
Great. Thanks, Varant.
Good points. Tim Hyde.
Yeah, like again, probably echo your thoughts, John. Love your energy, Kaylin, in terms of how you present and kind of build up stuff in the room. The which dog are you, which cat are you, was a nice fun way to break the ice, which I thought was really cool. But also the, as you said, the interactiveness. I know certainly for me when I'm presenting over Zoom, I find if everyone's just sitting there either with cameras off or, looking blank, you kind of don't know if anyone's actually engaged with the presentation or not. And I really appreciate the interactivity of saying, look, here's the thing, go and do it yourself, run it, experience it. And it's the transformation. I think you go from, I've got a bit of content and like, oh my God, now I've got 365 tweets.
Particularly if you're using your own content, right? That's
using my own content. Yeah. I mean, that was on point. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Thanks for sharing.
Masterclass. Kim, biggest takeaway from today?
The biggest takeaway from today is I have questions now. I've got curiosity going, but if you have a book, this is great. If you have any like real material where you've taught things or anything like that, also good. But if you don't have that, so if you do, it's awesome and I get it. If you don't,
you're not Kaylin's ideal client.
Yeah, you have to figure out how to get them into that realm where they do, and how they're dialing it into their ideal customer as well. So you always want to make sure that we are. So that's the other piece that that's where we look at, are you dialed into your ideal customer? And I think about how many of my customers actually have written a book, and not a lot of them have, or have done trainings, or have done the kind of stuff that they can pull from to do it, so I find it interesting from the standpoint of, okay, well, how much content do you have to have in order for this to be an amazing process? And it doesn't have to be a book. I get that. So I'm kind of left in this query about, okay, so what would that need to look like? And how does that wrap into the philosophy that we already bring to the table to bring your own. And the other thing I love is find the work that is uniquely human. And humans will never have, or AI will never have the breadth and depth and body of experience that you have. They just will never have that. That's uniquely you. And if you can figure out how to tap into that, you'll never have AI take it away.
Great. Dan Doherty, biggest takeaway from today, buddy?
Oh, look, the wizard themes. Where can I? Well, you know, you had me at your background. The dogs and cats thing, loved it. The framework, the interactivity, the interaction. That's amazing. Message you before. Yes, you can use it in long form content, which is great. And then I guess following in from Kim, if anyone can't create a long piece of long form content, Kim, like a 5,000 word post with Grok 3, DeepSeek, or ChatGPT, they need to take their computer back to the place they bought it and say, I'm too fucking stupid. Sorry.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that my question about that would be, yeah, they could generate long form, but are they present in it? Because I'll go back to what Kaylin said and I'll say it my way, which is GPT AI is the moderate, average, slightly stupid version of the prevailing wisdom of the day. And is that going to have you in it? And the big important thing to really make a difference is that you're present, that your unique expertise is reflected in your content. So yeah,
Yeah, I
you can
think
use all those tools to generate it, but you've got to be there.
Yeah,
that's
I've
the strength of
got
the
that
system.
covered.
But let's keep with biggest takeaways, and then we'll have some questions at the end there. So you got any more big takeaways there, Dan?
Yeah, no, that was excellent.
All good. Leon, biggest takeaways from today, mate?
Yeah, the thoroughness of creating a calendar and just exactly like I feel like I need to be more specific in my prompts. So yeah, I think it's like really, really good. It was really, really impressive, Kaylin.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Rodrigo, and you've escaped an intro to the group, which I'm going to loop back around to at one point as well. But Rodrigo, biggest takeaways from today?
Hey all, I'm just going to echo everyone's sentiment. Great presentation, great content, the energy. The biggest takeaway for me is the creation of that calendar for the posts and the generation of those posts. I've been playing around with some of that, but at a very, very basic level. So the learnings from today are huge. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Rodrigo.
Well done. Scott Baker, are you available? Give him a sec.
I am. Yeah, that was really, really good. I was listening mainly because I just have other things I couldn't see all of it, but yeah, just the way the process that you were going through is all and like what everyone else has pretty much shared is like Dan was saying, and that yeah, it was especially the calendar, knowing that you can put it together like in the structure that you do. Yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah, good. And then finally, I think it's finally, David, your biggest takeaways from today, David?
Well, when we were talking, John, earlier, we were both concerned whether this group would be relevant for me. And bada boom, having just written a book, this is about as relevant as it could be. Now, I didn't dump my PDF in there because I've been told to hang on to it. So I really did nothing except observe. But I can tell you this, Kaylin, last year, my book is 50,000 words. I dumped it into ChatGPT and I asked it for content marketing, right? And it did a pretty good job, but it did nothing like what you're doing in terms of getting to the depth of the content and the themes and the scheduling. And, my light bulb was going off. I had a choice to go with a traditional publisher or indie. And I talked to enough authors who went the traditional route who were still paying off their advances because their books didn't sell. I didn't want to be in that position, right? So I hooked up with an indie group that helped me publish the book. Boy, would they have loved this. So I wonder if the industry, you would know more than me, but in the US, the indie publishing business is kind of on fire.
Yeah.
And I think a tool like this would catch the wave.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Another potential connection.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I actually give this presentation quite a bit to groups of authors because they are, they're known for spending 3 or 5 years on a book, and then once it's published, they drop it like it's hot.
Right.
And they don't want to touch it anymore. But that's when you're supposed to be active on social media and talking about the topic. But they're often,
Right.
authors are, often into different things. And so they're working on the next book. They don't want to be talking about the last book. And so if you can use a framework like this to create a lot of on-topic content and schedule it to go out, then you don't have to be thinking about it every day. But you can still be posting about it every day.
So I'm the one doing the scheduling now. I'm the one thinking about this, right? And it takes time. So this was great.
Great.
Plus, I
Great.
agree. Your background's super cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I, being a wizard, Dan probably would appreciate this. I've got a different. I can't get. The audio's not coming through, but I can. I use Runway ML to put an audio on that, and it's my voice talking about it, and you can actually animate illustrations of yourself. And so I've been using the wizard theme a lot.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, I reckon we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, and then we will stop at the top of the hour. If you have got a little, a couple of minutes extra, Kaylin, and can stay back, we
Yeah, I
can
can
take
stick
a couple
around.
of extra questions if people have got them.
Sure.
But any questions for Kaylin?
Yeah, could you use other people's books that might resonate with you, or topics that you cover that you might even, I don't know, Amazon link it, affiliate link it maybe, but it's more about creating content that's resonating, and you're also, it's almost like newsjacking, but you're standing on the I guess the shoulders of someone else who's great.
Yeah. Well, this relates back to what Kim was saying. If you don't have a book, what could you use? And the reason why I use the Wallace Waddle book is because it's in the public domain. There's nothing ethically wrong with using something that's not under copyright. But technically, you could upload Tony Robbins' catalog and start posting motivational coaching content based on his voice. The ethics of that, it gets murky. But if I know that for myself, when I'm creating a custom GPT and I want to train it on a body of work to give it the context and give it the voice that I want, sometimes I use other people's works to flavor it.
Yeah.
It's like using different ingredients in your dishes,
I once heard a technique from Ed Dale, who used to do the challenge. It was back 10 years ago. But the technique that he would use is he would get other people's content and use it as a seed. And the prompt was strongly agree, strongly disagree. And then he would go off and just riff on strongly disagree with that point or strongly disagree with it. And then he'd record himself, and that transcript would be the genesis of the content.
Brilliant.
But yeah. All right, 1 minute left. I reckon we can squeeze in one more question. No, if not, that's all right. What we might do is we'll wrap up there.
Where do we find out more?
More? Well, there's these links in the chat box. I've got my own website. I'm at Kaylin Hunter. I'll just pop some links in since you asked, Tim. I've got my personal website at kaylinhuntress.com. The types of marketing work that I do is over at stellarplatforms.com, but I don't do a lot of that work anymore because I'm really into Gen AI training. And so I'm pivoting out of the marketing field and into doing generative AI training and teaching workshops like this, where it's hands-on practical experience where people can actually use these tools. So instead of just getting the theory and a bunch of tutorials to do later, I like teaching the workshops where people are actually in the midst of doing the thing, because I find that's the most effective.
Well, thanks so much, Kaylin. We've hit the top of the hour, so people that need to jump off for meetings, you're welcome to jump off now. But a big round of applause for Kaylin. Thank you so much. That was, as I said, a masterclass in presentation. So thank you so much, Kaylin.